Today we're going to talk about performance transformation. This is for hands-on CEOs who feel that their teams could do more and want practical ideas on how to unleash their team's performance. In this masterclass, you will learn why monetary rewards are often not enough nor sustainable, why your employees can't seem to do what you want them to do despite being shown how. It's as if they don't remember any of what you've been telling them again and again. And lastly, you learn why you're probably wasting your training budget if you do what most companies do. Most companies spend on 1 to 2 day training and expect change. I'll reveal why it's an unreasonable expectation. My name is Coach Leon, and over the last decade, I've worked with over 100 companies designing and delivering customized transformational programs for either their sales or leadership teams. Most of my clients have been in the small and medium enterprise space with between 50 to 250 employees. And prior to being a full-time coach and trainer, I started, grew, franchised, and eventually sold a retail service business. So in this masterclass, I pass on the practical things that I've learned both as a hands-on business owner and coach working with SMEs. This will be worth your time. I will share with you my framework when I work with teams, because my professional passion really is working with business owners to improve either the performance of their sales teams or their leadership teams. I coach the sales teams on how to close more of their leads. So that's really what I work on. And for managers and supervisors, my focus is increasing productivity by guiding them through a process where they initiate new projects so that they raise their KPIs. Okay? So those are the two general programs I work with. So today, basically, I'll share with you the underlying design for the programs I do. And I think this is useful because it will not only help you get insights on how to work on your team's performance, on how to improve their performance, but also how to work on your own performance. So this, I think, will give you personal insights on how to improve in whatever skill you want to improve in. So first off, performance. What is performance? What comes to your mind when you hear the word performance? Sorry? Achievement of goal. Result. Okay. So it's basically how you achieve something based on a goal or a standard. It's that simple. And typically it's associated with standards like what? Maybe there's completeness, there's speed, time, diba? Like for quality, no? So for sales, you're supposed to sell a certain volume within a certain time frame, right? For leaders, so for managers, supervisors, maybe it's accomplishing certain outputs also within a given time frame. One of the sports that currently I'm involved in is actually this, all right? So how many of you here ride a bicycle? Can ride? Or at least you know what a bicycle is, right? Okay. Okay. So this is one of those things that I kind of have some interest in. Okay. So normally on a given Sunday we ride up either somewhere in Busay or Liloan, right? And in terms of performance, you can say that your performance is improving if you cover a certain trail or a certain distance within a shorter and shorter time. Or maybe you challenge yourself to go up higher and higher elevations. Okay? So, yan ang classic. But I'd like to compare performance improvement in sales and leadership to another hobby I have, which is, technically, it's not even a sport. Okay? Now, I realize I'm in a room of business achievers, probably all looking here, di ba, at busting quotas, improving profits, being promoted, things like that, di ba? But I have a question. How many of you here enjoy listening to music? Especially dance music. Okay. Anybody love dancing to music here? None? Boy, this is a serious group. Okay. Sige. Because one of my ways to relieve stress and tension, one of my current hobbies is salsa. Okay, you know what salsa is? Not the dip. You know, it's a Latin dance, and you do it with a partner. Yeah, you do it with a partner, and I think it's more apt to compare improving performance in sales and leadership to salsa dancing versus mountain biking. Okay, and there are several reasons why. Well, one is, right, there are roles. But just like with when you're a leader, like you have to have what do you have when you have a leader and a team or a follower, right, or a player, right? And also in sales you have a seller and a buyer, hopefully, right? Yeah, and so there are defined roles. Okay. So this is, of course, my analogy is salsa dancing, not club dancing. Because in club dancing, you don't have to dance with a partner. You can just do your thing, right? Right? So that's a different thing. Okay? Now, another thing that's parallel is what? There are certain steps. There are defined steps that you take. There is a process, right? And if you don't follow the process, then the dance is not as smooth, right? But I think the third one, which is like really the big one, you know, when we go up the Busay and bike, are we shy? Do we worry about people looking at us? Not really. There's no one there. You know, you bike up like 6:30 in the morning, hardly anyone there. But when you're social dancing, especially when you're new, there is a feeling that what? You are being watched, right? You're being watched. So that's why things that involve social pressure, where you feel you're being watched, I think that really goes well as an analogy to leadership and sales. Because with sales, have you ever had a customer where they looked at you a certain way as you were talking, and suddenly you felt small, belittled, uncomfortable? Right? Yeah, in the same way that maybe, especially for, this is a common experience of newly promoted people. You're talking to your team and they're looking like you're just one of our colleagues. You're just newly promoted. Who cares about what you say, right? So these two arenas, sales and leadership, really lend itself to a lot of social pressure. So that's why this is what I'll use as an analogy. So the first idea is that, high performance is really a choice. Okay? So I'll give you a backstory of how I got into dancing. Now, by nature, I like trying out a lot of new things. So throw me in a new place, I will try to taste as many different food and have as many different activities, as possible. So one of the things that I tried out a bit, I dabbled it was dancing. I actually tried a bit of tango, I tried a bit of hip hop, I tried a bit of salsa, but nothing hardcore. But one time, a friend and I were at BGC because I heard that there was a Mexican restaurant there, and I was told that there was a Latin night. And I said, well, I've taken a few lessons. I want to try it out. Can I actually dance outside of a studio without, a teacher choreographing us? So my friend and I went. We were having beer. And so this lady comes in. She was carrying a small bag, which for girls, that's a signal they dance because those were probably dancing shoes, right? So I said, maybe now's the time to try it out, right? So I actually asked her to dance, and we danced for about 2 awkward minutes, the most awkward salsa dance in the world ever. And we were just laughing about it because anyway, we're both newbies. So, a few lessons, yeah, me too, blah, blah, blah. Okay, so fine. So we sat down. Now, moments later, this guy arrives. Apparently, he looked like a businessman, much older than me. He was Japanese. And the kind of person you wouldn't think, this person dances? No way. Doesn't look like a dancer, because, when you imagine dancer, that was not the stereotype I had. But apparently he was. And apparently he was there to teach the girls some new figures. And they danced. And when they danced, it's like my jaw really dropped. Like he danced with like 30 times more grace than I did. And it was really awesome to watch. So it's like, when I saw it, it's almost like a gut feel of like, I want to do that. I don't know how, but that's what I want to be able to do. So after I watched it, in fact, I talked to him. So prior to that, I had no experience whatsoever, with really deep dancing or anything like that. But after seeing that, it's like, I want to be able to do that. So at that moment, basically, it became a choice. Now, when I work with teams, that's one of the problems, is that a lot of business owners are frustrated because they think that this is something that they can actually mandate their people to do. It's like saying, every day I'm there, I'm motivating them. Why don't they perform better? I've already, came up with a new incentive scheme and still the performance is not changing. Now, at the core of it, the challenge really is that high performance is a choice. Not theirs, but the employees. Right? Not anyone else, but yours. You decide. Okay? And so, from here on, we'll discuss a framework of 3 M's. 3 M's in sequence that can shift your performance, that can shift your team's performance. So what is motivation? A drive, right? What else? So when there's something we need to do and we don't do it, what you normally say is, I am not motivated, or I'm not in the mood. So it's basically a feeling. So let's start with that. So motivation is essentially, there has to be a feeling first. There has to be a feeling of wanting to change. Just like at that moment when I saw that guy dancing and I said, I want to be like that guy. I mean, there's no specific plan to reach it, to do it, but there's a feeling that I want to. And this is one of the toughest things to do. So how do you get people motivated? How do you do it with your staff? How do we do it with your colleagues? Okay? So let's say you have a team. Okay? How do you get your team motivated?
Involve the team in every decision.
Ooh. Can you give him a hand, please? That's awesome. Okay? So first is, that's really very important. You've got to involve the team. So if it's a one-way street we're in, it's just the leader saying, I want you to do this, we should do this, then typically that doesn't work as well. So there has to be some involvement, right? What else? Okay.
You need to understand what they want.
Okay.
What drives them to begin with.
Okay. So you need to know what they... Okay, so what they want, and typically you have to go to the level of the individual. Okay? What's in it for them? And that's hard, right? And that's why the typical management width of control is what? Maybe 1:5 to 10 people. Because otherwise you can't be talking to each one of them.
1:15 in our case.
1:15 in your case, yeah. Years ago, it was like ideally 1:5. Okay? Okay? But there's one more thing. So you want them involved, right? And you gotta dig through what they want individually. It also helps if, of course, there's some form of would this be important? Some form of recognition. As Napoleon once said, men will die for ribbons. Diba? So recognition doesn't necessarily mean like cash incentives. Because some are thinking along that way, oh, we gave an incentive that they're not doing it. Studies show it doesn't work long term. Okay? But more importantly, I think, which is, there's another element here. There has to be what? A sponsor. And who's the sponsor? There has to be an active, visible, really like high energy sponsor. And who is that?
That's us.
That's you. Yeah. Okay? So, in a lot of cases, the reason why the changes have stopped or are not as are not progressing as they should be, the leader is tired and needs a timeout. The sponsor has to be there, very active, very visible. Okay? How many of you here manage people? I just see a show of hands. It's about half the group. Okay, more than half the group. Okay. So, let's see. Let's do a quick exercise. Since we want this to be applicable not only to your team, but you as well, right? So, let's talk about a skill. Is there any skill that you would like to improve? Okay. So let's do a little writing exercise. So I want you to think, is there a particular skill that you would like to improve? Whatever your role is. So you could be, right now you could be a seller, you could be managing people. So, as specific as possible is best. Okay? So for example, if you're in sales, it could be what? Skill in terms of what? Presenting, negotiating, cold calling, skill in drafting proposals, doing your expense report. No, that's not. Okay, so, and if you're managing people, what are example skills? Sorry? Yeah, leaderships. Within leadership, let's be a little more specific. Maybe like what? Communication. Okay. Maybe even more specific, communication in what particular context?
Listening.
Yeah, could be. Listening, handling a meeting, presenting a new initiative. What else? Maybe interviewing new candidates, training people. Dami yan, di ba? So for you particularly, I'd like you to think of a skill you'd like to improve. Maybe at least have maybe 2 or 3 things there. So let's do a little writing. So that, di ba? Kasi, if we're saying that for a team to start being motivated, there needs to be an active sponsor, then as the team sponsor, you need to be in this process yourself. It's very hard to motivate other people towards improvement if you are not in that same process yourself. Okay? So here we're just like doing a quick exercise on that. Okay? So, what's one skill you want to improve? Okay? So, skill. So let's do an example, okay? Can somebody throw me an example of something they wrote?
Listening.
Listening? Retaining people? What else?
Imposing self-management.
Self-management? Okay, sige. So, these are just short words, but I'm sure they mean more to you, right? I mean, if we were to like dig deeper, then that's a whole elaboration. Okay, so do you have something there, everyone? Lalo in sales, I mean, later on that will be very useful. Okay, now the question is, why is this skill important? What would it give you if you were to improve in that? If you were to become a better listener, if you improved in terms of retaining your people, in self-management? Yeah, can you put there one or two reasons for doing it? Does everybody have something?
Yes.
Okay, so most of you have? Okay, now let me ask you, are you feeling motivated right now?
Yeah.
Some of you are, some of you not. So this is the same process why it's hard, right? Because sometimes, right, we tell someone, hey, you know what, you should improve in this, right? And this is how it will help you. And they're staring at us like, duh, right? It's a tough process. This part is tough, right? So that's why this needs a what? An active and visible sponsor. Right? So in this case, medyo magro-role play tayo. I'll be your active and visible sponsor. Okay? So I want everybody to stand up. Workplace motivation can be broken down into two categories: extrinsic, or coming from the outside, and intrinsic, or coming from within. Now this is important to understand because if you have an employee, he or she is more likely to go beyond minimum work expectations and seek out new challenges if the right kind of motivation is in place. The first type of motivation is extrinsic motivation, most commonly in the form of pay and promotions. Now, interestingly, decades of research found a weak link. There's a weak link between salary and job satisfaction, and this seems to be true globally. Salary is important at the point of hiring, but becomes less important once your employee is already on board. And that's why money alone does not transform performance sustainably. So salary increases and annual bonuses alone are not the answer to raising levels of employee engagement. You need to tap into the second type of motivation, which is intrinsic motivation. Now, this type is more deep-seated. It's the desire to accomplish goals and develop professionally. The tough part is that this will probably be, well, somewhat different for each employee. They will have different goals and what it means for them to develop professionally. So, instead of guessing, why not ask them? This is what we'll illustrate in the upcoming section. Okay. So with your partner here, I just want you to share what? This is what I want to improve in. For example, I want to be a better listener. Example lang, ha? So let's say I'm the person sharing, okay? I want to be a better listener. And, this is important to me because I keep getting feedback from people that I don't listen and I treat people like they're not important. And what's happening basically is that I notice that my team is less motivated because of this. Okay? And I see their eyes rolling when I talk. Something like that, right? Okay, so that's the bit wherein you're sharing this, right? Now, your partner will have a job. Okay? Kasi sabi natin is what? We're getting you all involved, right? And we're digging out at least, one of the reasons why you want to get involved. So after your partner shares, whatever they share, this is what you'll do. You just say, good start. No, not yet good job. It's not yet done. I mean, there's recognition and there's flattery. Let's go for recognition this time. All right? Okay? Sige. So, ready? Okay. Anyone, the person with the longer hair will start. So you just have maybe 15, 20 seconds, and then after that, you switch. All right? And let's go. Can we go back to our seats, please? We're good? All right, guys, can we give everybody a hand for over participation? Okay. Now, we're good? We're good over there? Okay. Now, do you notice, is there a change in energy in the room?
Yes.
Okay, so this is where you need to be before you start. This is how you start. There has to be a change in feeling. Because otherwise, if you just keep giving directions like, hey, you need to improve this, our sales are falling down, versus the other companies, look at our productivity, our competitors eating up, it's not going to work. There has to be this feeling. And if you look at your faces now, it looks like you all just had a shot of energy drink, right? A little more red, you're smiling, okay? So this is the energy that needs to be there. Now, is this enough? Is this enough? Not yet, right? It's just basically, that's why it's just what? Right? So if the visual is you want them to go out there and conquer mountains, this one just what? It just opens the door. They're still inside the house. All right? It just opens it. And now they're looking. Have they accomplished anything, typically? Not yet. Diba? What's a methodology? Process. What else? Steps. Structured process. Yeah? Okay? For me, I like the word recipe. Any of you here cook? Just one? Okay. Yan. Okay, maybe a third of you cook. Counted naman kahit yung sunny side up. That's technically cooking. Okay? So methodology, recipe, or procedure. So, one of the things that I've really picked up from my mentors, people who I've learned with, especially in terms of personal development, is the idea is that you can simply look for, to gain success, you simply have to look for people who are successful and copy their formula. That's like the shortcut, right? So in my case, what did I do? So that whole night, I was watching people dancing. My friend and I were the outsiders. We were with our beers like, oh, we wish we could dance. So later on, I saw the Japanese businessman, he was in front of the air conditioning, was drying his shirt. So it's like I approached him. So I said, wow, you're a really good dancer. How did you do it? I mean, when did you start? I've been dancing a long time. And the funny thing is, he said, I started actually late. He said, I just started dancing about 5-6 years ago. And he said, during my first 6 months, all I did every day was practice the basic step. 1, 2, 3, 5, 6, 7 in front of the wall. 1, 2, 3, 5, 6, 7 until it became automatic. So that was his methodology. Now later on, so basically with methodology, you're looking for people who've done it, right? Because if they haven't done it, they're just talking about it, then that's not such a good person to get a recipe from. You want someone who's actually succeeded in doing it. But actually, even more importantly, you know how to get the methodology, a good one, really fast. Would you like to know?
Yes.
All right. Get it from someone who actually has a system for teaching it. That's the fastest way. Because sadly, teaching and doing are two different things. There are certain people, they can do things well, but they cannot articulate it. Right? So, for example, have you heard of Freddie Roach?
Yes.
What is he famous for? Boxing coach, training. He's not as famous as a boxer. But do you realize he's a boxer? Yeah, he's a boxer. In fact, he was ranked fairly high, but he was never a champion. He was never a champion. And what happened to him basically was he improved a lot. He got to that level where, he was in contention. But what would happen is that his emotions would get the better of him. So that's why in a crucial match, instead of following the moves he practiced, he would actually get emotional and go into a brawl. Until it came time that he was too old to be at that competitive level. And he became, you know what he became? He joined the Butch's company. He became a telemarketer, actually.
No way.
Yeah, he did. That's what he did. He hated that job. So after work, what would he do? He'd go to the gym and train people for free. And he started studying techniques, more innovative techniques, because he felt that the training systems were very stale. So he looked for ways to be able to overcome his weaknesses as a boxer who never reached that championship level. And of course, the rest, as they say, is history, right? So several world champions are his students, okay? So you want to get with someone who has a proven methodology. So in my case, what really improved my dancing is I found a teacher, a German guy who was retired, who was living in Cebu, who gave lessons actually for free as long as we'd organize it for him. And the reason that I love learning under him is that I found that we had a similar background. We both started to learn dance in our 40s. When you learn in your 40s a thing like salsa, is it easy or hard? It's pretty hard. First of all your male friends will kid you. What the hell have you gotten yourself into? Right? Okay? And of course, what? When you go to a typical salsa, even here in Cebu, probably what? The average age is about late 20s, early 30s. And of course, right? You hear that voice whispering, "You're too old for this, man." Right? And you feel very self-conscious. But this guy went through that same process. He went, and of course, with German precision. Okay? So it came to a point where what? He studied salsa in his late 40s to the point where he actually was able to put up his own dance studio in Germany. And he had a methodology which was basically what? Steps were numbered and repeated. So he had the whole system for teaching it. And a lot of the better dancers actually who dance here in Cebu, well, now a lot of them are gone, but maybe rewind back to maybe 2 years, a lot of the dancers were actually trained by him because we had a growing class, right? So for methodology, find someone who's done it, but even better, find someone who's taught it successfully, right? So basically, when I have group coaching sessions, that's what I do. I basically just get what? Formulas that I didn't invent. Okay? So I do constant research, and then what? I apply them. I try them out because I actively sell myself, right? I actively manage groups. I actively lead classes, and if they work, then I grab them. I create a model behind it, right? And then that's what I offer to the students, okay? So an example of a formula would be this. So this is a procedure, this is a recipe for sales. Now it's very broad strokes, but it describes the whole process, right? And typically when you create a model, you want to make it a bit sexy, right? So one way to do it, of course, is to start the framework with the same letter, for example. So first is what? Clarify. What do you sell? To who? Why should they buy? Okay, so a bit of product knowledge is here as well. So that's the first step. You got to be clear even before you go to the customer, right? And then what? You contact the customer. And ideally, you contact in a way wherein you retain some status. Because if you contact, but then they see you as a pest, the rest of the formula is hard to do. Okay? And then, when you've agreed to some sort of meeting or appointment or even a telcon, you do a consultation. In a consultation, what do you normally do? You
Ask questions.
ask a million questions. Listen. Right? This is very basic, right? But I would say about 90% of salespeople are not able to do this properly. Okay? This is hard. It's easy to talk. It's hard to ask questions. And then, only after you've asked questions, you've gotten the information, some involvement with them, you convince them via a pitch, right? A presentation, a recommendation. And after this, you want ideally a ongoing relationship, right? For most of you here, you can do this, right? You can sell to clients again and again. And this is where really the profit is. Now, within this procedure, there are a lot more details here, of course, right? But this gives you a right overview already. Because, again, as I said, for 90% of salespeople who've not been trained, the challenge here is like this. Back when I was starting out as a sales rep, most salespeople would be trained for what? 2-3 months before they would be let out in the field. Most multinationals would do it that way. So I used to work, for example, for Kodak. Before Kodak sent me out to sell franchises, at the time when Kodak was really a strong brand, you go through a lot of training. You man a lab. They teach you about all the products, right? You do some technical training as well, right, on how to operate the machine. And then you do face-to-face, you do modules on face-to-face selling. So by the time you're out, you're really ready. Is that the same process now? Now people are hired. 3 days later, what? they're knocking on a customer's door, right? And some of them don't even really know what, they probably know what 5% of the product knowledge they need to know. And if they're that nervous, do they consult, ask questions? No. Some of them don't even bother to meet the client. Sir, what's your email? I just sent a proposal. That's it, right? And that's how you waste a lot of leads, right? It doesn't even go through this process. Let's say you know the formula. You have a proven formula that has worked for someone similar to you. Are you ready now? Or do you think there's something else missing? Anything else missing? You're motivated. You have a formula. So, for example, let's take cooking. You have a recipe. You were at a party, you tasted this dish. Wow, this is really good. Can I have your recipe? Then they give you the recipe, they describe it in detail. When you cook it the first time, is it going to be good? It's probably going to taste different, right? You got to do it again and again. So you got to pass through for selling, for leadership, you got to pass through typically a very awkward trial stage, right? So even let's say if you have the right scripts for this, when you go up to the client for the first time, you're probably not going to be able to deliver them smoothly. For those of you who've done some actual field selling here, how many of you here remember your first ever sale? Way back when, right? Were you confident? Probably not, right? You're probably very nervous, right? Very self-conscious. I mean, I remember my first ever sale. It was in a public market in Cainta, Rizal. I was basically just selling what? Very basic products like toothbrushes, tissue paper, mosquito coil. These are not like high-tech products, and these are very cheap. And yet what? My lower lip was what? It's quivering by itself. And so I made my first sale because the owner of the store took pity on me. It's like, oh, you're new. Let me see your clear book. Okay, I'll get 6 of these and 3 of these and 3 of these, and I had my first sale. Because I was really nervous. So you have to go through a awkward moment. And that's what we call the momentum. Right? So even if you know the formula here, the problem is the rest of your body doesn't know it yet. So for example, I would watch a YouTube video of how to execute a salsa move. In my mind, I could picture it clearly. This looks easy. 1, 2, 3, and turn 6, 7. But when I would be there, it would be as awkward as hell. Yeah. So you pass through that awkward stage. Now, I mean, imagine, right? If knowledge were all that was needed then, people like librarians would be the most successful people in the world. Yeah? Because they have access to a lot of information. But even now, you can just turn onto YouTube and Google and whatever, then you have the information. There's a study that shows like about 60% of people do some sort of a New Year's resolution, but only, 8% actually achieve them. Can you imagine? That's small. Habits are really hard to change. So how do you go through this stage? What are some effective strategies for this? So here I'm going to borrow an idea that I got from Anthony Robbins. So this really guru, great coach. I attended one of these programs, and it was a 4-day program, but probably I only remember 3 things, and this is one of them. How to get good in something. So he gave a formula. Okay? So he said that most people really are just dabblers. They try out things. They never become good in most things. But he said if you want to become really great in something, then there are two stages you have to go through. Okay? So the first stage is immersion. You really have to immerse yourself in that particular, let's say it's a sport, but that particular sport, that particular skill, that particular world. Okay? So an analogy could be like, can you imagine, like, I realize you're hungry and this will make you hungrier, but we're eating in a while. So can you imagine a stick of fish ball or squid ball, right? And then you dip it. And then you raise it. What happens? Like the sauce kind of slides off, right? But if you dip it and let it stay there for like a minute, then that's immersion. It really what? It soaks up the sauce. It transforms. Now it's heavy. So previously in salsa is what? I just tried it out. I didn't immerse. But when I decided to like go full-blown, spend less time drinking with my boys, and go with salsa classes for I think about 3 months without fail every Wednesday, because that was the only class available. Every Wednesday I would be there, and right after we would go social dancing with the same group. So that's immersion. Now, but it's not enough, because like in terms of retention, do you retain everything? Like for example, here in this class, will you remember everything? Probably not. You'd be lucky to remember 10%, right? So there has to be a period where you do a lot of intermittent practice. Meaning, from time to time, you have to go back and practice the same thing that you learned in immersion and beyond that. Because retention that's really the challenge. At this point, you probably have an idea why some employees can't seem to do what you want them to do, even if they are motivated. The reason might be an unclear methodology, especially when we give them vague instructions like, cliches like walk the talk, or be more focused, or be more proactive, be more customer-oriented. So these things are very vague, right? So in the absence of a clear methodology, what most people will do is copy what their more senior colleagues do. And very often, what the veterans do isn't what's most effective. It's what's most convenient and good enough not to get them fired, right? Now, you might have also invested in training and given the principle of momentum, where it takes immersion, followed by regular practice to truly transform behavior. If what you've invested in is, let's say, a 1 or 2 day event, the intended change probably never took hold. Especially if you weren't there yourself as the active and visible sponsor for the project. So back to class. Sometimes I talk with, let's say, an HR person, and they say, oh, our people have taken the presentation skills program and they're certified. When did they take it? 2 years ago. I don't believe they remember any of it, right? Because, I do presentations every week. And if there's a script that I haven't reviewed for a while, I tend to forget it. So, there has to be constant practice. Okay? So, how does this apply to your team? So let's say you got your team motivated. You got them rallying around the crisis, or another way to do it, of course, is talking to them one-on-one, just really getting to the point where they're excited about what a change can do for them. And then you're able to get what? A formula or a methodology for getting where you want them to be, right? Then you have to schedule constant practice. Constant practice. So in my programs with sales teams, my typical structure is, for 2 whole days, we go into immersion mode, the whole process. From setting an appointment, to interviewing a client, and to presenting and answering objections. The whole process. And then in between, what happens? I give them drills that they practice on their own. And then we meet again as a whole group for even more intense practice. And then they practice on their own again, and we do a final practice. Because what really happens, the frustration of most business owners is what? Their people attend some sort of program and they don't see any effect at all. Right? And it's not because the salespeople don't want to learn new things. The problem really is what? Social pressure. Once they're out there with a client, right? They learn something new to say, they're afraid to say it. Because some of the scripts I give them are a little more confrontative. They're not comfortable with it. Right? So when they meet a stranger, for example, like if you were to see yourself earlier, right? Find a partner. Right? And what did most of you do? Did you immediately get up and, you're my partner? Did you do that? No, everybody's like, pick me, pick me, pick me. Right? So it's a bit tentative because you're not used to it. Right? But once you get used to it, so typically this is what I get on the first day of a program. But later on when I say, okay, pick a partner, then I can just turn my back because that happens fairly fast because it's been practiced. So that's the last part of it. So, okay, so I'd like to end with, with a quote I'm borrowing from one of my favorite books, Power of Habit, okay, by Charles Duhigg. This is if you're really interested in changing habits, this is one of those books that it's a must-read. He also has videos on YouTube, so that's something you might want to look at. Okay, so change may not be fast, and it isn't always easy. Okay, but with time, effort, almost any habit can be reshaped. So lately in the dance scene here in Cebu, there's this dance called Kizomba. And about a year or two ago, I guess that's when it was first really introduced, we all said, it's too slow, it's boring, nobody will dance it. But now it's becoming popular. So if you're a regular dancer like me, the worst thing for you is to be sitting out 2 songs because you can't dance the damn thing, right? So now I've actually started to learn Kizomba. So I signed up with, of course, I know the formula, right? When you're motivated and you have the methodology, you have to have a momentum experience, some immersion, right? So I signed up with a teacher for 8 weeks. And I got a supportive partner to practice me. Someone who's also studied with that German guy. Okay? Because, just like in business, right? There'll be new music. And you can say that, well, I'm already comfortable with that I know right now. But, with new music, what happens? You'll feel it when your customers are responding differently. Your staff is not as motivated, not as productive. Then you will have to learn new skills. Right? So just like with dancing, the same process. Okay? So again, just to summarize, high performance is a choice. Motivation starts the journey. Open the door, and you see the How do you do it? Methodology shows the path. And to get people finally doing a bit of travel towards their goals, climbing up the mountain, you need immersion and practice, which goes under momentum. Momentum starts the... Okay. Right? So thank you very much. You've been a great audience. And so thank you to you as well. I hope you've glimpsed some useful ideas for your team. And so now, you have three choices. You can do absolutely nothing. You can do it yourself, or you can get outside help. If you're interested in outside help, here's the next step. I've set aside some time for a 45-minute free consultation via Zoom video conferencing. This call is for hands-on business owners and CEOs of companies with 50 to 250 employees who want to raise the performance of their sales teams or leadership teams. Now, during the call, we can discuss your situation and what actions can be done to address it. This call is not for those in MLM, networking business, or commission-only groups like insurance or real estate agencies. I'm not the right coach for those type of organizations. But I do work with business owners and CEOs across diverse industries. Examples of industries I've covered are software, industrial and construction products, catering, medical equipment, consulting, venues, various technological products and services, and telco. So if you want to schedule a consultation, click on the schedule button to find a convenient time, and I'll speak with you soon.